There are two great forces in the universe: silence and speech. Silence prepares, speech creates. Silence acts, speech gives impulse to action. Silence compels, speech persuades, said Sri Aurobindo on the 15th of August 1924. He was born in Calcutta on the 15th of August 1872. The 52 years in between, however, was not exactly a period of silence. His involvement in Indian politics is well known. Taking off humbly as a patriot, he went on to the position of the head of the Indian National Congress. As a political activist, he wrote profusely for different political journals, edited them, and lectured extensively on the prospect of the country's liberty. In 1910, Sri Aurobindo suddenly left the political arena and chose to withdraw to Pondicherry, a tiny French settlement on the southern shores of the Bay of Bengal. The shift should be attributed to quite a few factors, among which were included the dialectics of silence and speech. Aurobindo was born here in Calcutta and was sent to England by his highly anglicized father K.D. Ghosh at the age of 7, along with his two brothers. Brought up first in an English family at Manchester, he joined St. Paul's School in London in 1884. He left in 1890 with a senior classical scholarship to King's College, Cambridge, where he studied for 2 years. In 1890, he also passed the open competition for the Indian Civil Service. But at the end of 2 years in probation, he failed to present himself at the horse riding examination and was disqualified for the service. At this time, the Gaikwad of Baroda was in London. Aurobindo met him, obtained an appointment in the Baroda court, and left England in January 1893. So far, there was hardly any sign or manifestation of spiritual quality in his character, but on arrival at the Apollo Bandar in Bombay, a sudden realization surfaced. He felt a stupor, an absolute calm. I began to have spiritual experiences, but these were not divorced from this world, but they had an inner and infinite bearing on it. We must understand his statement in the background of his classical education in England. We also have to understand that according to his father's strict instructions, he received only Occidental education without any contact with the culture of India and the East. His long 14 years in Baroda was a kind of warming up through creative writing, mainly poetry, in which he had shown skill even in England.
He came to India on 6th of February 1893 and to Baroda on 8th of February 1893, and he immediately started his job in the secretariat of the Maharaja at that time. Then later on he shifted to the Baroda College as a part-time lecturer of French, and then he was fully appointed as a full-time professor of English, and there he started teaching, and then he rose to the post of vice principal, and he was acting principal also. Sri Aurobindo lived in this house at least from 1901 to 1906. Earlier also he must have lived here because Citadel was his friend, and he wrote a letter after his marriage from Nainital that now make some arrangement about my stay, and Citadel offered him this house only, and so he stayed here. Barindra and other people also came here. They were also staying along with him after marriage. So you can say that Baroda is a bridge in his consciousness between the West and the East. He acquainted himself with his Indian culture and Indian scripture and Indian philosophy only in Baroda.
As an employee of the Maharaja Baroda, he was engaged in clerical activities and reading and writing until he met Vishnu Bhaskar Lele, the Maharashtrian yogi. Lele instructed him how to reach complete silence of the mind and immobility of the whole consciousness. Sri Aurobindo achieved it in just 3 days, with the result of lasting and massive spiritual realizations. He opened himself entirely to the hands of the divine within and moved only as he was moved. This experience was the foundation and became the principle of Sri Aurobindo's sadhana. But the aspiring sadhak still had to pass through a phase of trials. The freedom of the motherland was an issue intrinsic to his thought. He left Baroda in 1905 and openly joined the Indian political scene. Taking up the position of the principal of the newly founded Bengal National College in Calcutta. What struck him first was that the gospel of non-cooperation with the British government was vague. He contradicted the moderate leadership strongly. The ideological clash between the moderates and the nationalists, whom he led, changed the very face of Indian politics. Vande Mataram became his mouthpiece for a short while. The British rulers obviously located the seed of sedition in Sri Aurobindo's leadership. They put him behind bars on a false charge of criminal conspiracy in the Alipur bomb case. He was put into solitary confinement in Alipur jail. He spent almost all his time here in reading the Gita and the Upanishads and in intense meditation and the practice of yoga. He also had visions of Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda. The meaning of yoga and its effect was revealed to him during solitary confinement. His sister and other well-wishers were scared that he might get corporal punishment. Sri Aurobindo remained calm and confident from within about an ensuing acquittal. His friend lawyer Chittaranjan Das argued so strongly about his innocence that he was set free by the lawmakers after a year. Once out of jail, Sri Aurobindo did take up numerous lecture sessions to convince fellow Indians about the final mission of freedom. It was in Uttarpara, a satellite town to Calcutta, where he spoke publicly of his yoga and his spiritual experiences for the first time. There must have been various contending factors for the freedom movement to lead to a positive end. But Sri Aurobindo was the mastermind behind the creation of a new spirit in the country. He was not exactly against the philosophy of violence, since he knew that countries of the world had achieved freedom by violent resistance. But his sole aim was to act without a hue and cry. He realized that by being drawn inwards and calm within, one can demonstrate courage, integrity, and the power to resist the evil. Swaraj, or nationalism, whatever you call it, he felt means complete self-sufficiency. Through two journals, Karma Yogi and Dharma, he started sending his message to the people. But in 1910, suddenly one day, Sri Aurobindo left Bengal by what has been described as a divine diktat. There was information about his rearrest. Sister Nivedita told him about it. Within 10 minutes of receiving the command from above, he left for Chandanagar, then a French territory, by a tiny country boat. The date was the 4th of April 1910. Friend Motilal Rai arranged for this small place for him to stay. He was there for a month, and then by another command left for Pondicherry, another French settlement in the south of India. The escape to the French territory was not just to avoid the British eyes. It was destiny working out a different strategy. In Pondicherry, he came first to stay in Shankar Chetty's house and was supported by the owner. But Sri Aurobindo had to shift to a few more places before settling in the address where he had lived for the next 40 years. Now his practice of yoga became more and more intense. He slowly dropped out of all participation in public activity, refused more than one request to preside over the Indian National Congress, and made a rule of abstention from any public utterance of any kind not connected with his spiritual activities. In 1928, Rabindranath Tagore came to meet him. They had met earlier in Raja Shobhod Mullik's house in Calcutta. Malik was a well-wisher. He had donated a big amount of money when Bengal National College was established. No details of the poet's meetings are available, except that the poet could not talk for the rest of the day. After returning to the boat he was travelling in, to Sri Aurobindo, the principle of yoga was not only to realize the divine or to attain complete spiritual consciousness. He kept a close watch on all that was happening in India or the world and actively intervened whenever necessary with a spiritual force and a silent mind.
In Alipur jail, as you rightly put it, the alarm clock rang. It was the first phase was over, and he believed that now he is to wake up to the greater part of his mission, the greater aspect of his mission, which was the transformation of human consciousness, for which he evolved his own yogic discipline. It was a new yoga because, as you know, practically the end of every spiritual discipline is to liberate us from the cycle of birth and death. But he did not see life as something just meant to be rejected and the soul to get away from the worldly environment or the worldly process of rebirth. He believed that since the divine has created this world, it had also a divine future. And that divine future can be possible only when human beings have become divinely enlightened integrally. That is not simply in the realizing the soul, but the mind, all the source of our problems, our vital desires, all these things must be completely changed. They must become vehicles of the inner spirit, which is divine spirit, even the physical body. It is a revolutionary concept, a mighty great concept.
The highest manifestation of Sri Aurobindo's philosophy was the ashram in Pondicherry. One can describe this place as an ideal location of life. The ashram was founded and was meant to be the cradle of the new world. The inspiration came from above. This observation is reflected in all activities and in each individual in the ashram.
Ashram doesn't have one single point of view, each one has the liberty to think in the way he thinks. It's discipline, but each one has the liberty. The only thing is that everyone has to work, and the most important thing is harmony. Work has to be carried out in harmony. And the achievement of harmony is the most important thing in anything that we do.
There is no preaching here. The very atmosphere of the ashram is charged with the Master's teaching. When one is accepted as a disciple, he is not initiated into any mantra or asked to follow a set of yogic discipline. The ashram does not follow any religious creed, tradition, or convention. The ashram vibrates with truth along with purity, serenity, clarity, discipline, and orderliness. Masterpieces like The Life Divine, Savitri, and The Synthesis of Yoga were written in Pondicherry. As a writer, he had completely surrendered to his inner calling. One of his close disciples, Nirod Boron, has written, "We used to see him sitting on his bed with his pen and paper on the table, but no books. The words came flowing to his pen as from a hidden silence. Now and then he would stop, look in the front, and dive again. He had stopped thinking long ago. To be free from the responsibility of thinking was a great relief." Times Literary Supplement wrote on January 1942, "He is a new type of thinker, one who continues in his vision of the alacrity of the West with the illumination of the East. To study his writings is to enlarge the boundaries of one's knowledge." Radio was not initially allowed in the ashram, but it was brought in, and Sri Aurobindo finally asked to place it in a corner from where the world news could be heard. He had suggested that the Crips' mission to India should be approved, and India could support Britain in the war against Hitler's Germany. He had forecast the impending territorial menace that India might face once the Chinese, under Mao Zedong, were allowed to advance. He had sanctioned the establishment of an international school in Pondicherry and advanced scientific studies.
The mother began the school on 2nd of December 1943, and many parents were staying in the border areas of India, and those areas were affected by the Second World War. So that's the time when they wrote to the mother and Sri Aurobindo to allow their children to come and be here in the ashram, the family members as well. So that's how the mother and Sri Aurobindo opened the school for the children and the family members. Naturally, with the coming of the children, the school opened. 2 years later, the physical education opened. And since then, we are trying to implement an all-round education. We try to give an all-round education to the children, taking into account not only the mind's development, the mental development, but also the development of the finer aspects of their personality, as well as giving them the physical education to develop, for them to have a healthy, fit, well-exercised body with all the faculties developed. And thereafter, through quiet methods to methods of contemplation, self-seeking, we try to bring in other aspects.
Mother could not indulge in the cultivation of aesthetics in the ashram without his approval. He was a champion of poetry and politics in life.
যদি কিছু দাও মোরে দান হৃদয় ভরিয়া দিও প্রেম কণ্ঠ ভরিয়া দিও গান গান যদি কিছু দাও মোরে দান।
Before me, there were music classes in the ashram. Shahanadi took Dilipda, yes, then Shahanadi, Tinkurida. They all took music classes, but elderly persons, they used to go to them and they used to learn. I think mother wanted children to learn music, and that's how she wanted to start a music class in the school. And I was the fortunate one who got her grace. When mother spoke to me about the music class, I was really surprised. I couldn't believe my ears that mother is telling me to start music class. Anyway, with her grace, I should say, I started whatever I had learned at Calcutta. With that, I started music classes. And then it was really her grace which has carried us through.
In 1919, Henri Cartier-Bresson, the famed French photographer, was permitted to take his photographs. One can experience in them the mystic fire and light in his eyes, and encounter the light of knowledge and wisdom. The mother said that she had to frame some rules simply because no institution or any kind of corporate life could possibly be run without some laws laid down for general guidance. But the sadhuks were groomed in such a manner that there was no off-time enjoyment or mutual companionship or talk, feasting or gossiping. The 21st century is an age of communication. One may raise questions about the norms, but the fact is that the Pondicherry Ashram has a unique stake on life. As an American journalist has said, the ashram is but a rough sketch of the promised land, of a new heaven and a new earth. If and when there is any kind of violation in the connectivity level between the divine and the human, there automatically is a rejection. It was not in Sri Aurobindo's nature to show extraordinariness or trumpet forth his achievements in order to rise in the estimation of the world. Even when things went against his expressed will, he kept silent. His tranquil mind did not fail to respond even during severe physical illness in the last hour of his life. The mother was the motivating force behind the making of the ashram. She was in charge of the commune. She never converted it into a monastery for monks or sannyasins, nor made it a cave of austerities in a retreat for recluses. Prosperity, not austerity, had been the leitmotif. Indeed, prosperity is palpable everywhere. The morning sky resonates with the sun's solemn glow. The seas sing in joy. acres of greenery offer fruits and flowers in abundance. Blissful solitude sweeps upon the lotus pond. Peacocks nestle in the woods. Birds twitter. People from all walks of life queue up in absolute silence to reach out to the Samadhi of Gurudev and Ma. Peace dwells on each atom of life here. Silence reigns.
To achieve the silence of which Sri Aurobindo and the mother have spoken, the silence they have prescribed, that itself is a great sadhana. But once that has been achieved, oh, the delight or the tranquility, the peace, which we can envision, at least mentally we can imagine, that would manifest. And there only the reality of my being, the truth of my real existence, that will come out.
प्राण रूप तुमी प्राणी वृंदे नमो योगेश्वर श्री अरविंदे तब महिमो जलयलखित बरसे चैत पुरुष मम जागृत हरसे वितर विभव तब साधक वृंदे नमो योगेश्वर श्री अरविंदे ज्योतिर्मय तव कृपावतरणे सार्थक कर गुरु ममोत्तरणे नंदित कर मन मधुकर वृंदे नमो योगेश्वर श्री अरविंदे मति मानस विज्ञान दिशारी सच्चिदानंद लोक विहारी कर करुणा तव मानव वृंदे नमो योगी